Hello, this is the Secretary and Treasurer Training Workshop, so welcome. I'm Kaitlin Cirillo, the International Vice President and the immediate past New Jersey District Treasurer.
Yeah, and I am Brandon Orick, an international trustee and also the immediate past Pacific Northwest District Secretary. So we will go ahead and jump into it. So today we're doing Secretary and Treasurer training. Thank you all for joining. We're just going to cover Secretary first, and then we'll do Treasurer second, which Kaitlin will cover. So first, Secretary. So some things to remember. So first thing to remember, and if you're taking notes, I would suggest just, jotting down something on some of these like little bullet points. I've kind of condensed it so it's easier. But November 1st, publish the officer directory before this date. So this is kind of like the staple of your term. The district directory or officer directory is huge because as secretary, you are the main communicator of the district. So you'll kind of be collecting contact information throughout your whole term, which you have been elected already and, working through your position, so you already know this. But November 1st is kind of like the golden date. When I was secretary, I released mine before our summer board meeting, which was in August. The earlier, the better. So number 2, send out minutes within 15 days after the conclusion of each board meeting. This is just a simple reminder. So publish on the website, send to the trustee, and then send out the email to your district. So send out an update each month to the district board. So this is kind of just like a check-in. Some people already have like executive updates where each of the executives send out an update all together. When I was secretary, I did that and something separate to collect contact information. And so number 4, make sure to send out updates and resources to club secretaries. So it's super important that as secretary, you make a connection with your counterpart on the club level and help them with their monthly reports and filling those out, taking meeting minutes, resources on how to be a good secretary, that kind of thing. And that's beyond district convention training. So meeting minutes, find your style and make it fun. So you've probably already had your first board meeting. Well, I would guess that you have. And so you've probably already kind of like set, certain type, and you probably did it based on what was previously done. But as you can see, I kind of like made them, color coded based on like what, season it was. And then I also organized it in, its own way with like Century Gothic is the font I used, and I used the Key Club emblem. So also it can be difficult to take notes. So participate in, and then also in participating in important discussions and present at the same time. So make sure to jot down like important information after like someone presents, and then you can like fill in the blanks later. The only time it is necessary for word to be taken down is for like official business. So that you need like every single word down because it's like official, but other things like presentations on like, or trainings, you don't need obviously a word for word. So end of year report is something else that is huge for secretaries. It's required that you make an end of year report for the committees and what their accomplishments for the year. And then you pass this down after district convention to the next governor. So basically what I did is I kind of made up like, a simple design. And then I kind of gave the work to the committee chairs to write up bullet points on what they've done and kind of like their objectives for the year, and then send it to me to make like the list for them. And this was just easy because they obviously are going to be able to put their accomplishments better in their own words, as well as, kind of like listing out every single thing they've done that's worth mentioning. And another thing I did is I made a mid-year report in August to track the halfway progress of the district. So that's just an idea you could use, in August, just do the same thing, like get all the committees to like send a list of what they've done so far. And then it'll help you at the end of the year report, because then you can like follow up and they can remember the things they've done. Contact information. So this is huge. Obviously you guys probably have struggled a lot with contact information just because of like COVID and quarantine and schools not being open. So establish a connection with your board members. So this is something I thought was super important. So randomly check in, schedule calls, and text them to see how they are doing. This helps when you reach out to see their progress with collecting contact information. So regularly reach out to ask them about their progress. I think it's super important to make not only just like professional relationships, but almost like friendships with your board members, because you'll be working with them a lot, getting information from them. Be persistent when finding information for a club. Use Instagram. I know it sounds weird, but like stalking on Instagram has gotten people so far with contact information. I'm not even kidding. Google, even Facebook, anything and everything you can do. Look up like the club names on Instagram. And if someone's not answering your text messages, or you might have the wrong phone number or something, like look up their name on Instagram. Honestly, send them a DM. You know, it's like, that's the day and age. So, so stay on top of collecting contact information for divisions that don't have lieutenant governors. Calculate the percentage of information collected to provide to the board. So in my monthly updates, I would say like we're at 70% right now. The goal is to be at 85% by, you know, like October or something like that. Provide resources to your board members on how to contact clubs. So I think I might have something. Yeah, so this is a resource that I made. So steps to contact a club. This is kind of just like a simple one that I made. And it gives like a list of steps to take when contacting a club. So first one would be Kiwanis Club, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, just like help them contact them and make resources and continue to like provide education and different routes that they can take, because it's a struggle, especially with what we're going through right now. This is an example of the tracker of contact information. So as you can see, each division is listed out, and then I did how many clubs out of how many they had were collected. So if you look like, you know, out of 10 out of 10, and then Springboard, I had marked the green ones were like ones that were completely like finished. And then with that, those people were entered into like a raffle for a prize at Springboard. So there's like that kind of thing. Okay, so some tips that I have for secretaries regarding what I did that was kind of like outside of the realm of what you're like supposed to do. So creating Google groups. So this Google groups are basically like a group that you can, like an email list. So basically making one for each officer position. So president, vice president, editor, secretary, and treasurer. So I'm gonna walk through just quickly on like how you can do it. So here's the link to get to Google groups. So you push create a Google group and do this for each officer position. And then you kind of like group name, group email address, group description. And then, so this is gonna be like the main page for your group, pretty self-explanatory. And then you're gonna click manage members to add members. So then you're gonna go to direct add members, because you don't wanna do like invite members, because then they have to like accept the invitation. You wanna directly add them. And this is where it gets interesting. So this is where you're gonna add the officers. And then you're gonna put like a little message that says, I just copy and pasted each time. So you have to do 10 at a time only. So you just do like 10, 10, 10, and you can only do 100 emails per day. And if an officer comes up as invalid, it means their email isn't correct. Follow up with them and get the right email. I just copied everything from the district directory from what the lieutenant governors gave me, and then I added them to their respective Google groups based on like what position they were. So then here's some like tips and troubleshooting. So here's the group email. So then this is what you're going to send updates to. That's how I communicated with the different officers and specifically secretaries on resources. And yeah, the next tip kind of goes into that. So I created monthly resources and for the club officers that, well, for the club secretary specifically. So as secretary, you're the main communicator of the district. Here's some examples of what I did. The December one had to do with decon. So I gave like tips on how they could prepare for decon and help with that, because I know a lot of people are confused about like the timeline and registering and all that kind of stuff. And here's some things about tips and strategies to utilize the log report efficiently. So a different resource that I did was the log report. And I also had a secretary help me that was like particularly good at, you know, responding and submitting his monthly reports. So I kind of like bridge the gap, which a lot of people say. So think of ways you can improve and add on to the systems in place. For example, I created a meeting minutes outline, which is something that didn't really exist before. So secretaries could use this so they know exactly what information they're going to need for the meeting minutes. All right, so that's the end of secretary training. We do have a Q&A at the end, so you can ask, but I'm going to move on and pass it on to Kaitlin to go over treasurer. You're muted, Kaitlin.
Yep, sorry. Hello, everybody. So thank you all so much. So this is basically going to be going over the district treasurer responsibilities and to answer the question in the Q&A window. You don't have to be an LTG before your district treasurer, but if you are a current LTG and you want to serve on the district level next year, we are a little biased, but district treasurer and district secretary are wonderful positions. And don't get us wrong, district secretary treasurer, because there are some districts that combine the position, that is awesome too. But just some terms to know for district treasurer, or really in general at the district level for a Key Club, because if you know these, your life will be a lot easier. So if you are an active club, it means you have paid your dues. If you're past due, that means you did not pay by the regular deadline, which is December 1st, and that lasts from December 2nd to January 3rd, because once February 1st rolls around, you are suspended. And what you have to do, you have to create a roster, calculate your dues, or request an invoice, and this is done through the Key Club website. It's called MUC, or Membership Update Center. Now, we will be going through what that looks like with the video in a few minutes, so if you have questions, just hold off on asking them for now, because in terms of the Membership Update Center and how to pay, hopefully your questions will be answered with that video. And then you have to mail a check with the Key Club ID number, which would be on your invoice. In terms of the word inactive, that means that a club has not paid by the regular deadline. They were already suspended, and they were suspended all the way up until October 1st. Now, October 1st is when you become inactive. Basically, it's, in the way I like to describe it, it's the same thing as suspended, but in order to pay dues, you also now have the $100 reactivation fee, which the club does have to pay for unless you get a really generous Kiwanis club. I have seen that happen, so it really just varies on the club itself and the district. For charter revoked, that means you have been inactive for 2 years, so you're no longer on the district dues report, which there is a link to that. So if you want to know what your home club is, whether it's past due, inactive, active, that will show you how many members you have, when you last paid, just all of that wonderful information. That there's a link to that on a resources slide at the end of the presentation as well. In terms of chartering a club, that's basically just establishing a Key Club for the first time in a school that has never had a Key Club. Rechartering means a club has been charter revoked for however many years, and they now want to start a club up again in that same school. You have to pay the chartering fee, but you can also pay less of a chartering fee. I believe it's $200 less if you want to receive there's the gavel and the banner, which you would already have that, so it is less money. So if you're looking to charter, those are definitely pluses and things that you can use to your advantage in terms of starting new clubs, because obviously that is a wonderful thing to do in terms of increasing membership and just doing community service and having more of an impact. And then lastly, the last term to know, early bird. Wonderful, wonderful term. As district treasurers, or even as a district secretary, you want every single club to pay dues early. It is a wonderful thing that will make you stress out much less come December 1st. Early bird. When I say early bird, received by November 1st. So if you're mailing a check, it has to be received and processed by November 1st by Kiwanis International. So make sure, I usually use like October 1st as a good one, because if you mail it by October 1st, it will be received and processed and everything will be wonderful by November 1st, so that your club can get a patch that says you paid early bird, which of course is just another memento to show everyone how wonderful your Key Club is. So here is the video of the Membership Update Center, or MUC. So yeah, watch it and let us know if you have questions.
On the Membership Update Center. Currently, you're looking at the keyclub.org homepage. From here, to get to the Membership Update Center, What you're going to do is you're going to click on resources. That is going to bring up this page. If you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see a section where the third item over is advisors. You're going to click on get resources. This will take you to the advisor resource page. And then the second one over, as you scroll down just a little bit, you're going to see dues and reports. You're going to click on learn more. This is going to take you to a page where there is a link to the Membership Update Center. You're going to click on that link. And when you click on that link, it's going to open up to a login screen. When you get to this login screen, you're going to put in your email address and your logon, and then you're going to have to click on this drop-down menu after you put in your email address and your password, and you're going to have to make sure you're choosing your school. Once you do that, it's going to take you to this page here, and you're going to want to click on the Membership Update Center right here on the left-hand side. From here, probably the first thing that you're going to want to do is come down to graduation year and select the prior year. The students that graduated from the prior year. This will give you all your seniors. You can check all the boxes, and then you can delete all of those seniors. Next thing you're going to want to do is come back in. You can do it by class, or you can hit select all and remove any students that are no longer part of the organization. Once you've completed that, you have two choices for adding members. You can click on add new member, and when you bring up this screen, it's going to give you a screen that gives you quite a bit of detail, and you don't need to complete all this detail. But then you also have the option to use the bulk add new members. Okay, and when you go into that screen here, you're going to see that it's just asking you for a name and email address. Once you're done adding the new members, you can click back on members here at the top, and it gives you the option to come in here and complete your roster and print your invoice. What this will do is when you click on this finance tab, after you do that, it will give you the bill that you can print out and present to your bookstore or your Kiwanis Club for them to go ahead and process it for payment. Keep in mind that you can update your roster later on, so you could pay your dues today, and then you can come back in and add additional people. And when you click on complete roster and print invoice, what it's going to do is give you an invoice for the additional members. One other thing that I forgot to mention, and we're going to go back here to the dashboard. On the dashboard tab, one of the things we do want you to also populate is your officers. So please populate the officer information in here. That gives us additional information about your club and gives us contact information for the lieutenant governors and the governor as far as who are the officers in your individual club. This concludes the training on how to update your roster through the Membership Update Center.
Okay, so just to go over a few things about that video, you saw that there are different ways to input the information. Some ways are more detailed than others. It is very easy to get rid of all the seniors that have graduated just by doing, so sorting it by the graduation year. And as you heard him say, you can also add members whenever you want. So in order to get early bird, you have to pay with at least 15 members by November 1st. However, say December rolls around, you have 5 extra members that didn't pay yet, but they want to become members of your club and they need to pay dues. So you can go in and update the Membership Update Center, which is what the video showed you, anytime you want. Now, I did get a lot of questions in the Q&A section that I will address. And sometimes I messaged some of you privately. I messaged some of you so that everyone could see it. In terms of paying through the Membership Update Center, there are multiple ways you can go about it. One, your advisor will have a login. You can sit there with them. They can give you the login. It really depends on what your advisor is comfortable with and what your club just does every year. I know that sometimes the president will do it. Sometimes the treasurer will do it. But that's really at a club level. That video was mainly to help you help club officers, because as district treasurer, I know that video was a lifesaver. Being a district treasurer, I wasn't an advisor or a president of a club or anything like that, so I had never seen the inside of the Membership Update Center. So I couldn't tell any of the clubs hey, click on this, or hey, you have to input them here. So the video was a fantastic tool to let club treasurers know like how to pay, or even to help LTGs help their club officers. Because a lot of times they would reach out to their LTGs and their LTGs didn't know what to tell them. So then that was where that video came in, because it's so easy to share, just like with Google Drive. So that is that in terms of Membership Update Center. Any other questions about that before I head into more things about dues and what they are instead of how to pay? Once you collect dues, how do you send them? That you have to collect the money from your club. Well, not you specifically, the club itself has to. And that, like I said, falls on different people at the club level, just because different clubs have different ways of going about things. But it usually will be the club treasurer, along with the advisors, of course, because you're handling money. But if collecting dues in terms of Corona, unfortunately, clubs will have to get creative. Sometimes you can mail checks, sometimes maybe you can Venmo. It really depends on the club and what the school policy is. That is so important. So club policy, school policy, make sure you follow those in terms of handling money, because I know some schools, sometimes the kids can't handle the money at all, just based on the school policy, and there's nothing the club can do about it. Yes, you can access the Membership Update Center video. You can email me. My email is on the last slide of this, of this whole presentation, and so is Brandon's. We both have our phone number and email there. So feel free to email us with any extra questions, and if you tell us, hey, can I have a Membership Update Center video, we will send that to you. In terms of, like I said, collecting dues of Corona, get creative. Like I said, depends on the school policy. Once collect dues, how do you send them? I will touch on that in a slide or two. Deleting class of 2020 members. Make sure I would do that come November when you pay dues, or whenever you pay dues. Some clubs pay it in September. Whenever you pay dues for the new service year, that would be when you delete the class of 2020 members. It just makes it easier to do it while you're paying for the new year instead of doing it separate times. We will send you, we specifically will not send you the slideshow, but it is being recorded, so look out for links for that on the website. And if you subscribe to the newsletter, then it'll probably be in there as well. Encouraging members to be dues paid. I will touch on that in a little while, because they're asking such great questions. And club level and district level, just because this is the last question in the Q&A section for now. Club level is club officers, and district level is like lieutenant governors, the district executives, like the district treasurer, secretary, editor, governor. So that's what I mean by district level and club level. Some districts have one state like New Jersey, or some districts have multiple states like California, Nevada, Hawaii district. And I know there are more questions in the Q&A, but we will just put those off for a few minutes so we can get to the next slide. In terms of dues, how do you find the reports? Because as district treasurer, it is your responsibility to keep track of all the clubs that have paid dues. So how do you find them? That's just a very easy way to get to it. Now there are multiple ways, but if you just click on that link, Brandon, can you show them what it looks like? First bullet. Yeah. And this is just to see, like, if you see this, you're on the right page. That's the only reason why I included this link specifically. Follow that. And if you go to under Key Club International, I usually use the club information listing, because that was really helpful as treasurer, because it gave me more information. But honestly, anything under Key Club International you can use. I know different people have different preferences, so it really is up to you. But like I said, for New Jersey, use the club information listing. But back to the slides, just because I just want to show you what the website physically looked like. How often are those dues reports updated? Every 2 weeks, usually on Wednesdays around noon. But if it is a little longer, don't worry about it. It'll be up in the next few days, even if it's not on a Wednesday. Who should you contact if you have questions? Now, this phone number and this email, they're both on the website, on all the pages, like in the footnotes, basically. In the very bottom of the page, that's member services. They're there to help you with anything and everything. If you have questions that are specific to a certain club, the club can call them, and it is awesome for just answering any type of question. They've been at it a long time, so they pretty much have seen everything. In terms of how long does it take for updates to appear once a club pays? Usually 2 to 3 weeks, just because the check has to get to International, and then it has to be processed. And of course, during due season, when everyone is bombarding them with checks and just updated dues, it's going to take a little longer. So just be patient. That's why I also said October 1st if you want early bird, which please tell your clubs about. Tell your clubs, tell your entire district, scream it from the rooftops. Very, very, very important date. Just for the next slide, we are going to talk about delinquent dues because now I will provide, there's a link later in the workshop, but for delinquent dues notification, that is part of distinguished guidelines for district treasurers. So, yeah, you just have to tell all of the clubs that have not paid. If it's by December 31st, send them all by December 31st. Then the next deadline is the 31st, just January 31st, and then just prior to district convention. Usually those are anywhere between March and April. But make sure you, pretty please, the cherry on top. Address the clubs individually. Make sure you are very nice. It's not, sometimes the reason they don't pay is because they don't know how to pay. So you were there to offer them guidance and advice, not to, obviously not to yell and be like, why didn't you pay? Like I said, a lot of the time, the reason they don't pay is because maybe they have a new advisor, or like, maybe, I know a lot of times if an advisor is out on maternity leave, that's why they didn't pay, and they just have no idea where to go from there, and that is where you step in and help. And then on the next slide, there is an example of delinquent dues notification that I sent as treasurer, and now this will be shared, so I'm not going to read it through, you can read it through later, but basically it tells them how to pay dues, why I'm emailing them, who I am, and then of course, like, if they have any questions, please tell me, because you want to establish that open line of communication and be there for any questions they may have. So yes, that is my delinquent dues notification. I'm pretty sure that's the one I sent in January, but honestly, they were all very similar, so you can do the same thing. Next slide. Membership goals. Now, why do we have membership goals? Why do we even keep track of clubs? Like, why is that important? The more people we have in this organization, the more people we have in clubs, the more good we can do in our communities. So obviously the goal is to always increase in membership. Now, the whole reason why keeping meticulous records of the clubs when they pay is helpful, because that way you can accurately set membership goals for them. So about 10% per club, depending on the club's history. And of course, you'll know that based off of maybe it's past records, or just occurrences with the club. What are their strengths or weaknesses? Do they have a new advisor? Are they doing a new event this year that's going to increase membership greatly? It really all depends, and talking to your lieutenant governors and your district administrator will really help you set goals. In terms of having a strong LTG, that can sometimes mean the world for a district. There was one division in New Jersey where a few years ago, all of their clubs were suspended or inactive. And they had a really strong LTG, and now all of those clubs still exist. All of them are still chartered. None of them are charter revoked. So it really all depends on if you have a really strong LTG, or even if the LTG lives in that region, because I know sometimes if they are appointed, they may live far away, and visiting clubs and helping increase motivation that way, that's not always possible. Especially with COVID, now aiming for 10% per club may not be the best thing. You can also, something really helpful may just be to aim for just maintenance with COVID. Just maybe just have, let's try not to lose members. And that is totally fine too. You don't always have to increase. The goal is just not to decrease in membership. In terms of membership growth and retention strategies, the goal is to talk about them at a district level And then your LTGs will then, it'll trickle down to the LTGs or lieutenant governors. And then from that, it'll trickle down to the club officers through LTG newsletters, club visits, club officer training, really any method of communication that the lieutenant governor utilizes. But in terms of membership growth and retention strategies, if you have, I know there are so many resources already made on this. So if you contact Brandon or myself afterwards, we'd be more than willing to send you resources we have, because a lot of resources at the international level are applicable, obviously, to the club level. So contact us for those, please. And then in terms of membership goals on the next slide, this spreadsheet is what ran my treasurer term. This is how I kept track of all my membership goals. Now, of course, like I've said multiple times, in order to keep track of membership goals, you have to keep track of the membership in general. This is how I did that. So in the top left, you can see that I always kept track of when I last updated everything. Obviously, this is not the last time I updated it throughout my term. This is just a screenshot I have. I color-coded everything. Now, that may not be exactly how you want to do it. For me, the colors allowed me to see where the division was just by glancing at it. In terms of all the different rows, dues paid 18 and 19, that's when I was treasurer. So starting November 1st, or really whenever clubs paid, that is when I would input information into column C. For column D, for the status, if they paid, they're active. There's an I and a CR, and then it's not on here, but there's also an S. I is inactive, S is suspended, and CR is charter revoked. So if you look at the one that has an I, Jonathan Dayton, in row 142 in division 15, they did not pay dues for the 17 to 18 service year. So that is why they do not have a number in the 18 to 19 column, because they're inactive. They have not paid dues. For charter revoked, as you can see, all the way back to 2015 and 2016, that is the year they also did not pay dues. So that's why you don't see any numbers in that entire row, because Summit is, unfortunately, it still is charter revoked. This is the spreadsheet I used. Now, there's one spreadsheet, you can have multiple like sub spreadsheets with Google Drive. That's what I did. So this was one of the spreadsheets, and then I had a different spreadsheet. As you can see on the bottom, one document, two spreadsheets. This was the current membership, and then I had goals. So it basically looked the same way as this, except for I had the membership goal to the right of the dues paid 18-19. So if I had 94, I had the goal next to it, which would be greater than 94 if I wanted an increase in membership. For the Q&A bubble, you guys have any questions? Jacob, finding the current officer tabs, there is a link. They will be updated on the website soon. They do not have to pay all at one time. You can make many checks every 2 weeks or whenever, maybe every few days if you want, if that's when you get new members. When something goes wrong with payments, that really is handled on a club by club basis, just because sometimes it has to do with the login, sometimes it has to do with advisors not knowing how to pay. But if you have a specific question in mind, feel free to contact me after and we can totally work that out. So in terms of the wonderful thing we call distinguished guidelines. Now, I am a past distinguished district treasurer, so this is what I had in my newsletters throughout the year. Now, you do have to, in order to fulfill all of the guidelines, it involves sending 3 newsletters to all of the district treasurers, and it involves sending 10 newsletters to all of the district board. I ended up sending, I think it was 12 newsletters to the district board, just because one every month. That is a great schedule to go by. That way you know you'll meet the requirements, but here are some of the topics that I included. Dues, what they are and how to pay. I included where to send them, and I included the video, because obviously that video, like I've said, is probably the best resource to come out of my term as treasurer. In terms of the budget, I know this isn't something that all district treasurers have to do, but because in New Jersey it has to be approved by the district board, I let them know how I created it and how we were going to follow it throughout the year. So that is also a wonderful tool if the club treasurers need it, because that's something you can include in both newsletters that you publish. In terms of events, just the most important events, decon or district convention, international convention, any just trainings throughout the year, really any events you have in your district. And then, of course, any other related information, reasons to join Key Club, which I do have a flyer about, service projects and fundraising ideas, wonderful things, because it is possible to, now I know because some, obviously, and especially in certain areas, dues are a decent amount of money. Now, here's the thing. If you fundraise to help offset the cost for everyone, there is no problem with that. It doesn't have to come from all of the members individually. If you want to fundraise and offset the cost for every single member, go for it. That is totally an option. So that is, like I said, something that is just really wonderful to do. It's helped a lot of clubs, especially in certain parts of New Jersey over the past few years. And then, of course, like I said, chartering is always an important newsletter topic. Contact slide. I don't remember how many slides we have, but it is the last slide. Sorry, I'm just answering some of the questions in the Q&A right now. We're not from Florida. I'm from New Jersey, and Brandon is from the Pacific Northwest District.
Oregon.
We're a little biased, but we do love our districts very much. Any other questions before we move on? These are newsletters. Okay, Jenny, the slides are accessible. It's being recorded, so at a later time, just look out for the links on the website. Okay, so reporting. This is another, this is just another category in terms of distinguished guidelines. So the budget may need district board approval. Like I already said, it varies by the district. In terms of registration updates, fall rally, district convention, any other events you have, because you want to keep your district board updated, because when I say reporting, that's basically what you're doing at all of the district board meetings for the treasurer's report. Do updates by division and total membership. Make sure that your lieutenant governors know what suspended, inactive, and charter revoked mean, because if you tell them clubs are suspended and they don't know what to do with that information, you will most likely not get that club back, which is obviously not what we want. And then in terms of vouching, now I know some districts do this, some districts don't. If lieutenant governors can vouch for mileage or really anything they buy for certain district events, make sure you tell them how to do that. If you need help with anything in terms of vouching, feel free to contact me. New Jersey does vouch for certain things. Lieutenant governors vouch. So if you have questions about that, like I said, feel free to use my contact information on the last slide, and we can just address it individually. So the district board. This is just in terms of communicating with the district board. Monthly reports. So this, when I say district board, this is also still under distinguished guidelines. Everything in this presentation is. So for monthly reports, financial reports, this is the budget versus actual and the profit and loss statements. You can get these from the financial counselor, Kiwanis district treasurer. It really does vary by district, but make sure you send it to the district board. I have known so many district treasurers that have lost points and not gotten distinguished purely because they did not send the monthly report. So if you get anything from this slide, send the monthly reports. In terms of vouching, I already said that. Give them everything they need, the expense sheet, mileage log, vouching instructions, and account numbers. And then, the budget, send them basically anything they need. The previous year's actuals, because that's what it's based off of. You have to make sure you include the income and expenses just because it is a budget and that's what's required. Those are some examples of what the income and expenses are. Income is literally just dues. That's it. It's the number of members times however much it is for each member. For New Jersey, it's $650. For other districts, it varies. And then expenses include literally anything from vouching to key leader supplies, board meetings. Like I said, it all varies by district, but those are some examples. for the next slide, that is going to talk about clubs. So how you communicate with clubs. You have to send your introduction at the beginning of your term. Mine, summarize my platform for people that could not attend district convention, what my job is, and most importantly, how it relates to clubs. If I'm sending them something about me, it's so important to tell them how it relates to them, because that will get them to read it. And of course, your contact information. If you send them your contact information multiple times throughout the year, each time it will be utilized. For board and club correspondence, I know I already said this, but for the newsletters, 10 to the board, 3 to club treasurers, you set your own schedule. Me, I like to send my newsletters to the board the last Sunday of every month, just as like an update and a summarization of that month. And personally, I'm not very tech savvy, so I used Google Slides and downloaded it as a PDF. But you can also use Canva, and I know there are so many other softwares. So if you're immediate past district treasurer, or if your predecessor used anything else, feel free to use that. There is no one correct way to make newsletters, or really any resources for that matter. And then the last club treasurers workshop, that is at district convention. And that basically tells them their weekly, monthly, and annual duties, everything from collecting dues to creating a budget, how to run a fundraiser. It really can include anything and everything that you feel is necessary for a club treasurer to know. And then I'm just going to answer some of the questions in the Q&A before I get to the resources. These are distinguished guidelines for district treasurers. The requirements to run for district treasurer vary by district, but there really aren't that many. You need to be a paid member. You have to be a part of a club that is in active standing. And I mean, it all depends on when you get your paperwork in and everything like that. But if you have any questions about when your elections are going to be, just ask your lieutenant governor. If you're not currently on the district board, your lieutenant governor, your club advisor, really anyone in Key Club. If you ask around, someone will have the information. For Distinguished and Outstanding Treasurer Awards, those are, Distinguished District Treasurer is only district level. Outstanding Treasurer, it's really just Distinguished. I haven't heard of Outstanding Treasurer, but the Distinguished District Treasurer, you submit your binder to International at the end of your term after the new treasurer is elected. The differences between executive assistant and secretary. So it really varies by district depending on if you have an executive assistant, then the secretary may not have as many responsibilities, or if you have a secretary treasurer, the executive assistant can take weight off of many of the district officers in general. Is there anything, Brandon, you want to add for the difference between executive assistant and secretary?
I think in general, it like depends with kind of, if you look at like the things we've laid out for the duties and stuff and just apply it. Because if you are an executive assistant or you have one, then what happens is typically like the duties are divvied up differently. So whatever applies to like an executive assistant within your district, like the information that we provided is still applicable to whoever does that part of the job, if that makes sense. So really, it's not necessarily a recognized position like officially by Key Club International, but obviously each district has their own way of doing things. So that's kind of how I would explain that. And since I don't know exactly like which district that's from or like how they specifically do it, it is kind of like unique for each district to decide.
If you're wondering if you want to run for one position or another, I would talk to the people currently in that position. So, yep. In terms of the other two questions, what are the difference? Oh, we already answered that. What are your positions before district secretary and treasurer? For me, I was a lieutenant governor before I was district treasurer. Brandon?
For me, I was the lieutenant governor before I was the district secretary. So we have very similar experiences. Yes. And I'd also like to mention, just for like credibility wise, both of us have gotten distinguished for our positions. So if you have questions about that, we will show you the contact information page. Applying for distinguished is a whole rodeo of its own. So If you need help with that and like organizing and all that kind of stuff, like you could always reach out and ask. Because I know that there wasn't necessarily a lot in this about like how to apply necessarily, more of like what to do. So yeah, like we on the international side, we've made resources about how to apply. So if you want anything to do with that, like again, resources, contact us.
So this resources page. Now, this might be my favorite slide of the entire presentation, just because I'm a big fan of resources. Every newsletter I've ever published, there is a section for just resources. I have links to a bunch of things that apply to whoever I'm sending it to. So if any of you want resources, this is a slide to go to for district treasurer. Distinguished guidelines, pages 66 to 74 of the 2019 and 2020 guidebook. They will be updated in the coming weeks, but you also have to remember that the things being changed are so minimal in terms of deciding whether or not you start looking at them now. So a few things that are changed are like the points or the specific things that are included in newsletters, but none of the guidelines get more specific. If anything, they make them more general to make it more inclusive of international districts and just of all the districts, because everything is run differently, because every district is different. So those are absolutely wonderful. I suggest you look at them as soon as possible and make sure you do just do the things that are listed there, because if you do them, then you will have done your job very well. In terms of a Kiwanian's Guide to Chartering a Club, my treasurer year, I was a big fan of using resources from other districts. So actually I took a lot of resources from the PNW district where Brandon is from, because they are just awesome with making resources. So there's a Kiwanian's Guide to Chartering a Club and the Club Status Flyer. The Club Status Flyer actually is just another resource that defines suspended and inactive. So you can also, instead of explaining it like over a phone call, you can just send that flyer to your lieutenant governors or include that in one of the newsletters you send to the board. And then I made two flyers myself for just during my term, what are dues and how to pay dues. Now, not super tech savvy, so don't laugh when you look at them, but they do get the information across, which is the whole point of a flyer. And that those two things are super useful when used in combination with the video that we showed you earlier, just in terms of letting clubs know how to pay dues, because the sooner you tell them, the less things will be done at the last minute, and the more clubs you can have that will get the early bird patch that they can show proudly to their school. And then a guide to paying dues, that is the video. So yes. Any questions about resources? I'll try to answer some of the Q&A questions. This presentation should be found on the website. We were lieutenant governors as sophomores. Yes, we ran in like January, February of our freshman year, and then we were lieutenant governors from pretty much April of our freshman year to April of our sophomore year. How can we get proof? Contact us after. There is a way, I just don't remember off the top of my head of how you attended this conference, but don't worry, there definitely is a way. So yes, I'm just gonna dismiss that one. You can access the resource links when, actually if you have access to the recording, you don't have access to the PDFs. So we can, if you want access to them, you can just email us and we can just share it with you. That's easy too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Kaitlin, this is just like a question. We can share the viewable link to the slides in the chat real quick. Do you think?
Yeah, that's awesome. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Brandon to the rescue.
I'm gonna show the contact information. If everyone could, screenshot, take a picture of this, because I'm gonna switch the slide in a second just to do, so I can, actually, Kaitlin, could you share the link in the chat, the viewable link?
Yes, I will share the link.
Stop sharing.
Okay.
And that way we can just leave it up. But yeah, I guess we can move to questions like officially, because I know that Kaitlin, you did a really good job at answering questions on your way through your slides. which I didn't do. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I originally wasn't going to, and then I decided, you know what, I will. I changed it up on you. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So if anyone has any questions regarding the slides I shared, I did breeze through them pretty quickly just so we would have enough time. But yeah, and Kaitlin, if you could read them to me since I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything specific.
As a matter of one question, what are some requirements to run for a district position, and should I have a division position before running for a district one?
I think that there has been a lot of success from people that have ran from club level. And I don't think that people should limit themselves on past experience. I think that becomes puts a lot of fear in people. They're like, oh, I wasn't lieutenant governor, so I won't win this position. But I've seen time after time, amazing district governors, amazing district secretaries, amazing editors and treasurers and executive assistants come from the club level. So don't limit yourself on experience because everyone has something new to bring to the table. And I think it's important to recognize that as well. It definitely, I'm not gonna lie, being lieutenant governor does give you a perspective that you wouldn't have if you didn't have that position. But looking at it in a way of a stepping stone is not necessarily the right way to go about it. You wanna make sure that you're running for a position because you want that position, not because you want the position for experience for the next position, if that makes sense. If you think you can bring something good to the table for district secretary or for district treasurer, run for it. If you think you are qualified without the experience of lieutenant governor or a divisional position, then do it. I think that it has a lot more to do with passion and kind of do your research. What can you actually bring to the table? What in other organizations, or what do you see that can be changed, if that makes sense? But I always tell people that just don't limit yourself on those types of things.
Absolutely. And then to answer the next question, how do you prepare when running for lieutenant governor? It really does vary by division. For me, I ran against 2 other people and lost. I was appointed to actually the division neighboring the one I live in. And I mean, it worked out totally fine. I did a lot of events. They're called co-divisional events, but in terms of preparing, I had a speech. There were, I think it was 5 minutes total. It was a 3-minute speech, and then I had 2 minutes of caucus questions, and then I had another 2 minutes I had a choice, caucus questions or speech, and I chose caucus questions. I mean, if you lose, or even if you're running against a lot of other people, don't get psyched out. I know a lot of times, if the more divisions you have, the more likely you are to have divisions where no one ran for the position. And that was the case for me. I got lucky enough to be appointed to, like I said, a neighboring division. And I mean, I'm international vice president. Don't let any losses. It's not the end of the road if you lose. Absolutely not. So I hope that answers your question, Denise. The viewable link was posted in the chat, so please use that. You should be able to access the resources. Let's see. For running, how do you run for a district position? It really does vary by district, but pretty much you give a speech, multiple speeches at district convention. There are no specific requirements. You don't need to have previous experience as a lieutenant governor or anything like that. Like Brandon said, it really does come down to passion and how hard you are willing to work for your district and for your members. But all of the district conventions happen anywhere from the end of February to the end of April. So, I mean, just look at your district website. If you just type in Key Club and then the district you're in, that will pop up and you'll be good to go. Fill out the paperwork and just get the information from your district. Can none of you see the shareable link? Oh, it's to all panelists. Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna respond to the Q&A, and I'm gonna type an answer, right? I'm gonna copy and paste the link. Now, if I send it, can you all see it? If I answer a Q&A, does it get sent to everyone? Please tell me. Someone respond in a Q&A? Oh, yes. Awesome. Okay, perfect. That is the shareable link. You're welcome for all the people that said thank you. My pleasure. Sorry I messed that up earlier. Okay. In terms, okay, before becoming international vice president, were you ever an international trustee? I was not. I was lieutenant governor and then district treasurer, and then now I'm international vice president. Because there was only one person that was a previous trustee that ran for an executive position. And when I say executive position, I mean president or vice president for international. That is actually Kaitlin. She's the current president. But it's not necessary. It's one of those things where you don't have to be previous trustee to run for international president or vice president, just like you don't have to be lieutenant governor to run for to run for a district position. Brandon, I will let you do this one. Favorite Key Club event?
Oh, my favorite Key Club event? Well, I don't know if you mean like on the district level or international.
I don't know. The question just says favorite Key Club event.
But I would probably say like rallies are just obviously like the most fun. But I guess the most impactful for me was district convention, international convention caucusing. In general, I think that I love like Key Club elections and getting involved, which is why I was so passionate about becoming like the co-chair for elections this year, because I was like, I mean, it's been a dream since, I was a freshman lieutenant governor to like get involved and stuff. So I love Key Club elections. I think they're so much fun. I also liked attending other election rallies in other divisions as well. But obviously rallies or like fall rallies, or where you go to a theme park or and you have like guest presentations, are obviously the most fun. So yeah, I think that answers. I also love DCMs. Like all DCMs, just you take away something from a DCM and they're always so rewarding. So it's always fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, did you guys make friends in Key Club? Yes. Just the answer, yes. I will talk to a few people from my high school 30 years from now, but pretty much everyone I've met in Key Club, those will be the people that I will talk to when I'm old and gray, and they are my best friends. So yeah. So, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for Brandon. We love Key Club people. They're awesome.
Yeah.
How are you guys able to be LTG freshman or sophomore year? So we ran at the end of freshman year. So like we had about 6 months of school, and then January, February of our freshman year, that's when we ran. And because service years are April to April, it's not based on school year, it's just April to April, or whenever your district convention is. If it's March, then it's March to March, but you get the point. Hope that answers your question.
And I think it's time to go to the next workshop, Kaitlin.
Oh, yes, you are correct. Okay.
So yeah, thank you all for attending. If you have questions, hopefully you were able to get that information down, but if not, like the link is posted. Save that link real quick, because once we end this call, you're not gonna be able to access it. But if you need it, email us, text us even. I'm okay with that. I'm sure Kaitlin is too. So yeah, I think we're good to go, and see you guys at the next workshop.
Yeah. Oh, Carissa Ramos, you are awesome.
All right, bye guys.
Bye. We hope you had a wonderful time at our workshop.